A quick message before we start this video to say that you can now pre-order FM25 and support this channel by using a link in the description or the eye above. It gets you money off Steam's price from the offset, as well as an extra 5% off if you use my promo code at checkout, which is LOADFM25. That's LOADFM25 for an extra 5% off the already discounted price of Fanatical. Check the link out in the description below. Well, to celebrate the launch of women's football in Football Manager 25 and the details being announced in the roadmap for the new game next week, I wanted to start off with a little save ideas video, the first of many for FM25, for those that are looking to try a women's football save but maybe don't know where to start. We're going to keep it simple and start with a league that most of you will have heard of, as well as one that we know will be in the database from the off. From that, I'm going to give you 3 slightly different club challenges to consider from the WSL for the 24-25 season. Let me know if any of them appeal to you, or if you have another save planned from the world of women's football for FM25. Unfortunately, I am forced to caveat this content with a statement before we start. Due to my previous experiences here and on the podcast with women's football content and across other platforms too, I am aware that some of you will not be interested in the introduction of women's football to the game in FM25, and that's absolutely fine because from going to matches from both worlds, it's a very different match-going demographic in terms of its core fan base. So if it's not for you, then that's absolutely fine, but you just don't need to tell the whole world about it. For context, I know very few people, if any, who have a great flurry of interest in either the Latvian top tier or the J-Leagues from the men's game, but again, there was little outcry when those were introduced over the past 2 seasons. More leagues and options, in my opinion, is always better for the game. And for everyone, if more researchers are working on the game and adding detail, it's brilliant. The more options, the better. If you aren't going to use women's football in FM25, then absolutely fine and completely understandable. However, we don't need to know. Just leave it unticked as you would with the Latvian league and crack on with your save. With that frustrating disclaimer out the way though, let's move on to my first FM25 WSL save idea. So my first suggestion is pretty unimaginative, I know, but hear me out. We're going to start with Arsenal. Once the dominant force of English women's football, ironically alongside Doncaster Bells for most of my childhood, Arsenal are still very competitive at the top of the WSL, but have always been the nearly team in recent seasons, much like the men's team to be fair. They're a particularly good place to start for new WSL players though, as they'll have a number of players that are likely to be familiar, particularly to England fans. Key heroes of the Euro 2022 Lionesses squad are littered throughout the squad, including the England captain Leah Williamson, top scorer and player of the tournament Beth Mead, and 2023 edition Alessia Russo, who scored a cheeky back heel at one of the games I was at. They all formed a very crucial part of that famous squad. For a little bit of history though, Arsenal women have generally been a bit ahead of the curve in the past. They were founded by Vic Akers in 1987 before he later popularised the dual role in football by also becoming the kit man for the men's team under Arsene Wenger in 1997. He continued to manage the women's team until 2009, winning just the 32 major trophies, including 11 league titles and the first UEFA Women's Cup won by an English side. His final 6 league titles as manager formed the start of a consecutive 9 top place finishes, which later included the first 2 seasons of the WSL when it was formed in 2011 and 2012. Since then though, Arsenal have only won a solitary title in 2019 and have been forced to settle with consecutive League Cup victories over the past 2 seasons. But could you be the manager to take Arsenal back to the top of the English game and maybe even the European one? Especially now Emma Hayes has left her dynasty at Chelsea, might you have your opportunity? At number 2, let's move on to a club that are making waves and huge progress in both the men's and the women's setup. I'm talking, of course, about Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm ironically recording this off the back of a Brighton win in a WSL thriller yesterday, but let's take a look at the bigger picture and a reason to do this save. Brighton only won promotion to the 2nd tier as recently as 2016 before joining the restructured WSL in the 2018-19 season. Legendary women's manager Hope Powell helped them to survival in their first season of top flight football, and the club has since continued to push from strength to strength. After a number of permanent and interim managers since Powell's departure in 2022 though, Brighton now need you to provide some much desired stability in the managerial dugout. They've had an interesting summer in the transfer window too. They've signed two legendary experienced England internationals in the form of Fran Kirby and Nikita Paris. This should help most FM players that like to build young squads full of wonder kids. There are plenty of you out there, I know, as you should already have two perfect mentoring group leaders in the squad. Can you now take Brighton to the next level though and build a side that can challenge for Europe and maybe even a trophy? And at number 3, as always, I have to put a struggle in there because you know the types of saves I like to play if you've followed this channel for any time. It's always tough for promoted sides coming into a top division, and this story is no different and perhaps even a more arduous task for Crystal Palace. The South London side won the Women's Championship last season, but were struck by the blow of an ACL injury to the second-tier top scorer, Elise Hughes, late in the year. She remains out at the start of this season, which will make your battle for first season survival even trickier. In real life, their WSL campaign has started with 2 defeats by an aggregate of 11-0 when I'm recording this, suggesting that the goals will certainly be hard to come by without the striker who scored 16 last year. Add to that it's also been a very busy transfer window at the club. After promotion came 9 ins and 8 outs from Crystal Palace. It does mean that you're going to have the added work of trying to gel a squad together early doors and get lots of new players settled in, which may produce a difficult structure when it comes to the squad hierarchy. Can you be the person to compete at the top level and find a way to survive in the first season, or maybe building Palace into an established WSL side, and maybe even more moving forwards? So those are just my 3 suggested WSL save ideas to help you get started with women's football in Football Manager 25. Let me know what saves you've got planned for FM25 and any other leagues that you're particularly hoping make the initial women's football database when it's announced next week. We're going to have plenty of different save idea videos between now and the release of the new game, so if you want to make sure you don't miss any of them, please do chuck a thumbs up on this one, subscribe and turn that notification bell on to get alerts for them all. We'll also be continuing our FM24 stories, and we'll have plenty more over on the blog page as well. And don't forget to follow us on Twitch, live streams galore over there. Thank you for watching as always, and a quick reminder, don't forget you can order FM25 now using my link in the description, and the promo code at checkout is LOADFM25 to get an extra 5% off. I'll see you again soon for another set of save ideas, but for now, let's hope the announcement regarding women's football next week includes lots of the biggest leagues and ones we can get excited about.